And these people have blood on their hands also in terms of repression the Venezuelan people. And certainly everybody knows who we're dealing with here. But can we move them in the right direction? And what are we talking about? Shut down the narco trafficking. Well, the reason why the Venezuelan people aren't celebrating Maduro's removal is because they know the goons and thugs are still in charge. And they fear going out on the streets to celebrate.
What's going to be the future of Venezuela now that Nicolas Maduro has been deposed? Check out this great clip, which we'll watch and then talk about together. But first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
General, you were on Fox News Sunday yesterday, and you said the most critical question now is what's next. As you see it at this hour, what is next in Venezuela and how it affects the United States?
Yeah, certainly. Well, the Trump administration has made quite a big decision here, and that is to work with the Maduro government as opposed to try to depose that government, which would obviously lead to a physical presence of troops on the ground. And I believe they have some indications that they think they can work with this government and move them in the right direction. Everybody knows who they are. I mean, the three top leaders of them are all indicted, just as Maduro is. That's the vice president, the minister of defense, and the minister of interior. And these people have blood on their hands also in terms of repression the Venezuelan people. And certainly everybody knows who we're dealing with here. But can we move them in the right direction? And what are we talking about? Shut down the narco trafficking, shut down the Colombian gangs and the paramilitary militias that the Minister of Interior has used as goons to repress the Venezuelan people. The reason why the Venezuelan people aren't celebrating Maduro's removal is because they know the goons and thugs are still in charge. And they fear going out on the streets to celebrate. So obviously the administration has some indication by talking to the vice president that she is willing to cooperate. And listen, we have lots of leverage here. We could have taken Maduro's compound down and killed everybody. They know that. We chose the tougher option and the better option to go in there and try to extract them and put them before a judge and a jury eventually. They know those options are available for this president in dealing with those three top leaders as well. So we have leverage here. And what we want to do, in addition to what I just suggested, and the Secretary of State said so on television on Sunday, the objective is to move to a democratic form of government. And listen, so people understand, we're not about nation building here. This is not Bosnia-Herzegovina. It's not Iraq and it's not Afghanistan. Why? Because the democratic structure already exists in Venezuela, albeit it's in the wrong hands under Chavez, under Maduro, and now under the vice president. There is a Supreme Court. There is a National Assembly, a legislative body. There is an executive branch. There is a civil society that has been significantly repressed for the last 14 years and absolutely punished. But that society will come to life and be energized and be in the streets supporting a movement towards elections, which is what the administration wants to do. But they know they can't do it immediately because it's not prepared to do it immediately, and they want to first achieve some stability and then move towards it. Don't rush towards it, but make certain we get everything in place to make certain there's success here. It's an open question, Bill. We don't know how much this regime will cooperate. They want to protect themselves, but we have lots of leverage. We also have an amnesty leverage. You work with us, and we'll give you exile, and we'll give you no indictment. You help achieve our political objectives and inside the country, and also our security objectives, and there may be something positive for you at the end. So I don't know what the conversations are. I'm only speculating. But the administration believes, at least now, we can work with them and help them accomplish our political and security objectives. If not, we have an or else option as well.
Wow, well stated, sir. Let me try and run a little bit of this down and give me your reaction to this. The woman you're describing is Delcy Rodriguez. She's the interim leader, considered the vice president. There were some reports over the weekend that she was in Moscow. I don't think any of those reports turned out to be true. I don't think any of those were verified in the end. But she put out a statement last night around 9 o'clock Eastern time, and she said the following. She said, we extend an invitation to the U.S. government to work together on a cooperation agenda aimed at shared development within the framework of international law and to strengthen lasting community coexistence. Might have taken a team to write that one, but go ahead and interpret that based on how you read what sort of signal she's telling the U.S. government and President Trump.
Well, just a few hours prior to that, she was very defiant and non-compliant. So obviously, someone has had a conversation with her, likely Secretary Rubio. I also think conversations should be held with those two other leaders who are really the thugs and control all the power, the Minister of Defense and the Minister of Interior. This is Pedrino and Cabello, respectively. And we should have conversations with them, and even the chairman talked to some of the senior generals, saying, look, we know who you are, and we know your hands are dirty here, and we know you've been taking narco-trafficking money for years. You need to cooperate with us in moving forward. And we don't want to see any mobilization of forces in the streets. Same thing for Cabello. We don't want to see your goons out there against the people. We're going to move towards eventually a democratic election. If you interfere with that, then we're going to deal with you specifically. We have lots of leverage. I think they're making the right decision not to put troops on the ground and occupy the country. We're going to see if we can work through this with this administration, knowing we have intimidation and coercion here, and also a free ticket out of there as a reward for that cooperation. Lots of options available here. It may not work. And then we have the or else option.
Yeah, General, I got to run. Feels like we're in a 20-chapter novel here, and it's still well into chapter 1. I don't know if you disagree with that, but that's what it feels like as of
Early
today.
stages.
Early stages. Thank you, sir. Nice to see you, Jack Keane.
Venezuela just stepped into one of those rare moments in history when a door opens. And the question is not what happened, it's what happens next. But here's some good reason for a little bit of hope in this story. Venezuela's future is not only a political story, it's also a story of possibility, because the country has the building blocks to recover if the next steps are wise and are disciplined and are rooted in the dignity of ordinary people. First, look what's already changed. The conversation is no longer about endless stagnation. It's now about stabilization, recovery, and transition. Those are the stated phases of the U.S. approach being described publicly right now. And whatever you think of the American involvement, a plan with phases is different from the hopeless fog that Venezuela has lived under for years. Secondly, there is the question that everyone's asking: can Venezuela ever stand on its feet economically? Well, the fact is, Venezuela remains an energy giant. Its oil sector has been battered and mismanaged and constantly constrained by sanctions, but it's not dead. Public reporting puts current production far below its historic peak and still roughly around the neighborhood of under 1.2 million barrels per day, depending on the estimate. That matters because oil revenue is not a magic wand, but it is a lever. Again, you may debate the politics, but the fact is, this is real money on the table. And it signals that the world expects Venezuela to matter again. Third, there's a humanitarian and social truth that the world sometimes forgets. Venezuela has not collapsed because people that are over there are incapable. It suffered because its institutions were hollowed out. When institutions return, courts that function, police accountable to the law, business protected from extortion, something powerful happens. Talent comes back to the surface. The Venezuelan diaspora is vast. There are people all over the world. Many left not because they stopped loving their country, but because they could not feed their children or they couldn't build a future. Food insecurity and economic instability have been severe in recent years. If safety and jobs increase, even slowly, people begin to return. And even those who don't return can invest, can hire, can rebuild from abroad. So let's be clear-eyed in this matter. A post-Maduro Venezuela is not automatically a free Venezuela. One of the central dangers in any transition is that the old machinery of control remains in place only with different faces at the top. That's why the most important issue is not slogans, it's a credible roadmap, releasing political prisoners, opening space for parties and civil society, and committing to free and fair elections that the public can trust. So where is Venezuela heading? It's heading towards one of two futures. One future is a new chapter in name only, a reshuffled elite, continued fear, and continued flight. But the other future is something far more human, far more hopeful. A nation that begins step by step to rebuild the basic moral contract between government and people. The idea that power exists to serve, not to crush. And that's where optimism is justified, not because the road is easy, but because the conditions for change are finally present. A decisive break in leadership, a public staged plan being discussed for stabilization and recovery, real economic levers tied to oil revenue and production recovery. In the language I've always loved, hope is not the belief that things will be fine. Hope is the faith that our choices matter. Venezuela doesn't need a savior. It needs space, space for honest work, honest courts, honest money, and honest elections. If that space is protected, the Venezuelan people can do what people have always done when tyranny loses its grip. They can build, they can heal, they can return, and they can begin again. If you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.